I will never forget the metallic taste of my own tears mixing with the cheap champagne they forced me to drink. Not the horror of the moment, but the sheer cruelty of their smiles. They toasted with genuine joy, Kellen, his mistress Lysandra, and the entire Montclair family. As my hand trembled, signing away 4 years of my life and my last shred of dignity, I was nothing more than the ornament they were finally tossing off their Christmas tree. But here is what none of them could have ever imagined. Not Kellen, not his smirking mother Isolde, not his arrogant father Theron. That pen, that signature was not the end of my story. Minutes before that scene, a single coded message landed on my phone. A secret that would turn their gilded world into a cage and make them beg for the mercy they denied me. If you believe in the cold, calculated return of karma, and love watching entitled bullies fall from grace, you need to hear how Aura, the girl they called not good enough, became the queen who dismantled the house of Montclair, brick by painful brick. This is not a story of survival. This is a story of revenge. And it starts now. The champagne flute felt like ice in my hand, but the chill in the room was colder. For 4 years, I'd navigated these glittering halls like a ghost, seen but unseen, heard but unheard. Isolde Montclair's eyes, the color of frost, would slide over me as if I were a smudge on the window pane. Aura, darling, she'd say, her voice like silk wrapped around a dagger. Do try not to speak unless spoken to. It's better for everyone. Kellen's indifference was a different kind of cruelty, a hollow space where affection should have been. I'd mistaken it for reserve, for the burden of legacy. I was a fool. It was Theron who cornered me that night, near the towering Christmas tree dripping with heirloom ornaments. Let's be clear, girl, he said, his breath smelling of expensive scotch and utter contempt. You were a temporary convenience, a lesson for my son in what not to marry. You are a liability, and tonight we cash you out. Before I could form a word, Kellen was on the makeshift stage, microphone in hand, his mistress Lysandra glowing at his side like a venomous jewel. Family, friends, he announced, his voice smooth and triumphant. A toast to new beginnings. He raised his glass, and to the formal end of an unfortunate distraction. A server appeared beside me, not with champagne, but with a leather-bound folder. Open. A pen placed in my numb fingers. The entire room watched. Isolde drifted over, her smirk a masterpiece of malice. Sign it, dear, she whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. For charity's sake, it's the most useful thing you'll ever do. The pen scratched like a scream on the paper. I didn't feel my legs moving as 2 security guards took my elbows and escorted me past the gawking guests, out into the bitter night, the sound of their laughter chasing me like wolves. I was nothing. I was no one. And in the blinding flash of a paparazzi camera at the gate, I vanished. But deep in the silk lining of my discarded clutch, a phone they'd forgotten to take began to vibrate with a silent, seismic secret. Snow melted into the cheap wool of my coat as I sat on the bench at the deserted bus shelter, the cold seeping into bones that already felt hollowed out. I had $17 and a maxed-out credit card, my entire worth quantified by the Montclairs. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number, labeled restricted. I almost ignored it. What more could they take? But a stubborn, shattered part of me answered. Aura Bellwether? The voice was a woman's, crisp, professional, devoid of pity. My name is Eleanor Vance. I represent the interests of Caspian Sterling. It is a matter of the utmost urgency that we meet. Your biological father has been searching for you for 26 years. I laughed, a raw, broken sound. Is this some kind of joke? Did Isolde put you up to this? Miss Bellwether, the voice remained steady. Your mother's name was Evelyn Sterling. You were taken from a park in Geneva when you were 11 months old. We have DNA confirmation. We have pictures. We have you. She named the cafe 2 blocks away. Be there in 20 minutes. Your life, as you think you know it, is over. The cafe was all steamy windows and the smell of burnt coffee. Eleanor Vance was waiting in a corner booth, a severe woman in a tailored suit, beside a man with the calm eyes of someone who'd seen every kind of secret. Without a word, he slid a folder across the table. I opened it, and the world tilted. There was a DNA report, legal documents, and a photograph of a woman with my eyes, my smile, my face, Evelyn Sterling. My mother. She never stopped looking, Eleanor said quietly. Nor did your father. He is dying, Aura, and you are his sole heir. The investigator spoke for the first time. The trail went cold for decades. The people who took you, it was a targeted kidnapping, likely for ransom that never came. You were dropped into the system, your records lost. I stared at my mother's face, a face I'd seen only in dreams. A legacy stolen, a life erased. The humiliation of the gala was still a fresh wound, but beneath it, something new and terrifying began to stir. Not hope, something darker, a sense of claim. Your father wants to see you immediately, Eleanor said, standing. He has a company worth billions, and a brother, Silas, who is trying to steal it all. The question is, what do you want, Aura Sterling? Before we go to that meeting, before everything changes, I have to ask you, are you hooked? Do you need to see the Montclair's faces when they realize who they just threw away? If you're watching this and you're already desperate for their downfall, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This revenge is too good to miss. And tell me in the comments right now, where are you watching from? Let's see how far this story reaches. Now back to the compound. The compound was a fortress of glass and steel, hidden in the hills, more like a sleek, silent spaceship than a home. Inside, it hummed with quiet power. I was led through minimalist halls to a room that was all white and soft light. And there, in a bed surrounded by a symphony of medical equipment, was Caspian Sterling, my father. His eyes, fierce and intelligent even in a failing body, locked onto mine. Evelyn's eyes, he rasped, a single tear tracing a line down his temple. I've spent a fortune and a lifetime looking into shadows for them. His story spilled out, a love story with my mother, a kidnapping that broke them both, her death from a grief he called a chronic heartbreak, his relentless, doomed search. Silas, he finally hissed, the name a curse. My brother. He never believed you were alive. Saw my search as a sickness, a distraction from the company. Now, he's been systematically draining Sterling Dynamics, hiding it in shell companies, waiting for me to die so he can grab the corpse. He reached a trembling hand toward a tablet. With a tap, a live feed appeared, boardroom footage. A man with Caspian's features but a smile like a splintered mirror held court. Silas. He is the true enemy, Caspian said. The Montclairs, they are vultures, but Silas is the wolf in the den. A lawyer entered, presenting stacks of inheritance documents. All I had to do was sign, the heiress to an $8.5 billion empire, the power to erase my past with a single stroke. I looked from the papers to my father's desperate face, then back to the feed of Silas's gloating smile. The memory of a sold smirk, of Kellen's cold toast, burned in my chest like acid. I pushed the documents back. No, the room froze. I'll sign, but not yet. You want me to secure your legacy? I have a condition. I leaned close, my voice dropping to a whisper that held the weight of every snub, every cruel laugh, every shattered piece of my old self. The Montclairs die first. Financially, socially, completely. I want them to understand in exquisite detail exactly what it was they tried to destroy. Then I'll deal with Silas. Then I'll be your heir. Caspian stared at me, and for the first time, a ghost of a real smile touched his lips. Not a pleasant one, a recognizing one. You are your mother's daughter, he whispered, and you have her fire. Do it. As I left his room, Armed with his full authority, Eleanor handed me a second, encrypted file. Your father's contingency plan. It details how Silas and Theron Montclair have been partners in fraud for years. They're not just linked. They're a single, rotting tree. Cut one and the other falls. The next 3 months were a blur of calculated erasure and ruthless creation. My days were a brutal montage. Pre-dawn lessons in global finance from a stern Swiss banker. Afternoons dissecting corporate takeovers with a former CIA analyst. Evenings memorizing the minute social codes of the elite I once served. I learned to walk in Louboutins as if they were weapons. I learned to speak 5 languages of money. Investment, leverage, acquisition, debt, and ruin. My tutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Gabrielle, would watch me and nod. You are shedding a skin, Sherry. Do not look back. The woman you were could not do what must be done. She was right. Aura Bellwether, the pleaser, the hopeful wife, the charity case, was packed away in a mental box. In her place, I constructed Elise Vane, a mysterious, orphaned European heiress who'd made her own fortune in shadowy high-frequency trading. Cold, unreadable, untouchable. My nights were spent in a digital war room, piecing together the Montclair's true picture. It was a house of cards built on quicksand. The ancestral estate, mortgaged to its crumbling turrets. Kellen's business ventures? A cover for 7-figure gambling debts to very dangerous people. And Theron was the master architect of his own doom. His profitable partnerships were a labyrinth of shell companies, funneling money straight into Silas Sterling's embezzlement schemes. They were sipping champagne on a sinking ship, too arrogant to hear the groan of the hull. I traced the digital pathways, collecting evidence like a gardener pulling poisonous weeds, root by tangled root. One night, Gabrielle found me staring at a complex financial map, the connections between Silas and Theron glowing red on the screen. You see it? She asked. I nodded, a cold certainty settling in my stomach. I see the fault line, and I know exactly where to apply the pressure to make the whole world of theirs crumble. The final piece of my transformation was a look. I stood before a full-length mirror in a couture black suit, my hair sleek, my makeup flawless, my eyes holding a flat, merciless light. Aura was gone. Elise Vane smiled back. It didn't reach her eyes. The first call to Theron Montclair's office was placed the next morning. Mr. Montclair, I said, my voice a cool, unfamiliar melody. This is Elise Vane of Vane Holdings. I believe I have a solution to your liquidity problem. Shall we talk? Theron Montclair's office reeked of old money and new desperation. He tried to mask it with bluster, but I saw the flicker in his eyes when I laid out the term sheet. A structured bailout massive enough to save his company, complex enough to give him pause. Your reputation precedes you, Miss Vane, he said, stroking a paperweight. But these conditions, the oversight committee, are non-negotiable, I finished smoothly, adjusting the designer glasses that hid my face. Transparency is the price of salvation, Mr. Montclair. Or would you prefer your creditors at the door by week's end? He flinched. He signed. The first board meeting was a masterpiece of surreal agony. I sat at the long mahogany table, Elise Vane, the savior. Across from me, Theron preened. Isolde, seated as a board member by some archaic clause, looked at me with the faint, approving interest one gives a well-bred racehorse. And Kellen, he barely glanced up from his phone, bored. Look at me, I screamed inside. See me. But they didn't. To them, I was just another powerful stranger, a tool to be used. The irony was so thick I could taste it. As they debated numbers, I studied them. Theron's nervous tick when the fraud scheme was mentioned. Isolde's sharp eyes calculating social advantage. Kellen's disinterest masking a profound, rotting weakness. And with every document they handed me, every confidential report, the link grew clearer, brighter, more damning. Silas Sterling's digital fingerprints were all over their fraudulent offshore accounts. They weren't just business associates. They were co-conspirators in a sinking ship. Theron was Silas's puppet, and he didn't even know the strings were made of razor wire. As the meeting adjourned, Kellen finally looked up, his gaze lingering. "You know, Miss Vane," he said with a practiced, charming smile that once made my heart stutter, "there's a charity ball at our estate this weekend. You should come. I'd love to discuss the numbers further." The trap wasn't just sprung. The bait was taken. The Montclair ballroom was a gilded cage of my own memories. But this time, I entered as a predator. My gown was a blade of crimson silk. As Elise, I was a sensation. Theron and Isolde flocked to me, eager to impress their financier. I steered the conversation with the gentle precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "I heard," I mused, sipping champagne, "there was some domestic drama recently? A former wife." Isolde's laugh was a tinkling bell of malice. "Oh, that, a little project of Kellen's. A charity case, really. We rehabilitated her for a while. But some stains never truly wash out, do they?" Theron nodded sagely. "A liability. We corrected the error. Cleanly. My hidden recorder, a jewel on my wrist, captured every vile, dismissive word. Perfect. Kellen found me on the terrace, his breath smelling of brandy and entitlement. "You're different from the women here," he slurred, leaning close. "You understand power." He confessed then, in a boastful, pathetic ramble about his gambling, the thrill, the losses, the Russian loan sharks now circling. "Father doesn't know. Thinks it's just a few bad investments." He winked. "Our little secret, Elise." I smiled, the motion feeling foreign on my face. "Everyone has their secrets, Kellen." Just then, my phone vibrated. A message from Eleanor. "Caspian's condition has sharply declined. He may not have the week. The timeline is now." The music and laughter around me faded into a distant buzz. The game was up. The final move had to be now. I excused myself, my heart a cold, hard drum in my chest. In the quiet of a hallway, I made 2 calls. The first, to my father's compound. "I'm on my way." The second, to my legal team. My voice stripped of all pretense, pure aura, pure purpose. "Initiate Project Phoenix, and summon the press. Tell them Sterling Dynamics is making a historic announcement tomorrow. Make sure the Montclairs and Silas Sterling have front row seats." The sterile smell of the medical suite hit me like a wall. Caspian was a shadow of the fierce man from months ago. His breathing shallow and mechanized. His eyes fluttered open. Aura. His voice was a thread. He gestured weakly to a tablet. Codes, all of it. The master keys to every account, every backdoor, every lock on Silas's schemes and the Montclair's fraud. "It's yours." He gripped my hand with a surprising, final strength. "Don't just beat them, erase them. For your mother, for the life they stole." He gave me the coordinates for the final, hidden server, the one holding the uneditable, blockchain-verified originals of every illicit transaction. The kill switch. Then his hand went slack. The monitor emitted a long, steady tone. He was gone. The grief was a sudden, sharp thing, but I had no time for it. I let it freeze, let it turn into fuel. In the adjoining office, surrounded by my now-formed team, I laid out the plan. "We go now. Not in a week. Not tomorrow. Now." I called the CEO of Viridian Technologies, the Montclair's fiercest rival and a longtime secret ally of my father's. "Marcus, it's Aura Sterling. I need your main conference hall in 2 hours. And I need every major financial news outlet in the city there." To Eleanor, I said, "Serve the acquisition papers on the Montclair estate trustees. Effective timestamp, 1 minute after I start speaking." The machine was in motion. There was no going back. As I looked at the faces of my team, my father's last gift to me, I felt the last vestige of doubt crystallize into diamond-hard resolve. They had tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed. An hour later, dressed in a sharp, monochromatic white power suit. A funeral color, a rebirth color. I stood before the doors of the Viridian headquarters. The murmur of a confused, excited crowd leaked through. I could hear Theron's pompous laugh. I could almost smell Isolde's perfume. I took a deep breath. The doors opened, and I walked into the light and into their end. The flash of cameras was a physical force. The room was packed. Investors, rivals, media, and there, in the privileged front row, the Montclairs and a smug, oblivious Silas Sterling. Theron was already preening, believing this was his rescue party. I stepped to the podium, the silence descending like a guillotine. I looked directly at the camera live streaming to the world, then let my gaze sweep over my former family. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming on such short notice for this merger announcement. I paused, removing the custom glasses that had been Elise Vane's shield. I set them on the podium with a deliberate click. The room held its breath. My name, I said, my voice clear and carrying, echoing with a truth held hostage for years, is not Elise Vane. I locked eyes with Kellen, whose smirk was beginning to falter. My name is Aura Sterling Bellwether. I am the daughter of Evelyn and Caspian Sterling. And as of 1 hour ago, I am the chairwoman and controlling owner of Sterling Dynamics. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, the frantic clatter of keyboards. Theron went white. Isolde's hand flew to her throat. Kellen just stared, uncomprehending. I didn't let the chaos settle. With a tap, the screen behind me lit up. Let's begin with our first order of business. The first slide was a transfer of deed. At 2:01 p.m. today, Sterling Dynamics purchased all outstanding debt secured against the Montclair ancestral estate. The title has been transferred. I looked at Kellen. You are no longer the master of that house. You are a trespasser. Your eviction notice is being served as I speak. Next slide. A cascade of financial documents. This is the evidence of a multi-year corporate fraud scheme orchestrated by Theron Montclair. Theron shot to his feet, sputtering. In direct partnership with Silas Sterling, to embezzle over $400 million from Sterling Dynamics. On cue, federal agents moved through the crowd. The cold click of handcuffs on Silas and Theron's wrists was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The final blows came rapid fire. A screenshot of Kellen's secret gambling ledger. A photo of Lysandra in a compromising embrace with a rival CEO, time-stamped from the night before. Kellen made a sound like a wounded animal and sank into his chair, utterly shattered. I leaned into the microphone one last time. The room silent except for the muffled sobs of the ruined men being led away. The House of Montclair, I said, is closed, permanently. I turned and walked out, past the flashing lights and the stunned silence, not looking back. The victory was absolute, and it was cold. The rain fell soft and clean on the day we buried Caspian Sterling next to his beloved Evelyn. There were no paparazzi, no crowds, just me, Eleanor, and a few loyal employees who had loved my father. The grief was finally allowed to be just grief, not fuel. I placed a single white rose on the stone. Thank you, I whispered, for not giving up, for the fire. 6 months later, Sterling Dynamics headquarters buzzed with a new energy. My first act as CEO was to dissolve the toxic shadow division Silas had built and launch the Evelyn Initiative, funding ethical tech and clean energy projects in developing nations. The headlines now read, Sterling heiress leads with heart and steel. The fate of the antagonists was a quiet, satisfying coda. Theron and Silas, cellmates in a federal penitentiary, their appeals denied. Isolde Montclair, stripped of everything, was last reported living in a modest flat. Her name a synonym for disgrace in the society pages she once ruled. Kellen, I saw him once. Through the window of a downtown laundromat, he was folding sheets, his face etched with a permanent, hollow exhaustion. The prince was now a pauper, drowning in a sea of debt and derision. On a bright autumn morning, I visited my mother's grave. The sun warmed the marble. "Hello, Mother," I said. I told her about the company, about the good I was trying to do. I told her about the cold Christmas night that felt a lifetime ago. I didn't feel hatred. I felt a profound, quiet gratitude. The Montclairs, in their exquisite cruelty, had not ended my life. They had shattered the glass prison I was living in. They had handed me the hammer, and in doing so, they gave me the power to build my true, destined one. I am Aura Sterling Bellwether, and my story finally is my own. And that is how you turn tears into triumph. If the story of revenge and rebirth lit a fire in you, if you loved watching every single piece of karma fall into place, then show this channel some love. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and tell me one word that describes how you're feeling right now in the comments. Your support fuels stories like these. Until next time, remember, never underestimate the quiet one. They're usually the one writing the ending.